Hey there, Saints. Pastor Dave here with another weekly devotional for you this Wednesday. I'm going to start with another reading from Sarah Arthur's One Year Daily Grind, and the subject of this one is listening for God. Last week, I was looking around for where I saw God on campus, in my life, in the lives of the people I know. This week, I'm listening. Whenever I ask a certain friend of mine how I can pray for her, she almost always says, "Pray that I'll be able to really hear God." One time I asked what she meant. Did she mean an audible voice? Did she mean a passage from the Bible that seems to speak directly to her situation? Or perhaps the pastor's sermon? What about those moments when people just feel God's presence or know exactly what they're supposed to do? Is that what she wanted? She paused and then said, "Yeah, all of that. Except maybe not the audible voice. That would freak me out." This week I want to explore some of the ways God speaks, even the audible ways. I want to pay attention to how he speaks in the everyday world around us, even through people or events or things we never would have expected. I want to hear him in the small things like the whisper of the wind, as well as the big things like the booming of the chapel bells on campus. The trouble is, all around us there's noise. We're simply drowning in it. Music and ringtones and traffic and chatter and news anchors, the crush of sound never seems to stop. Even when I'm home alone in the apartment, there's still the hum of appliances, the swish of traffic, the high-pitched buzz of the computer monitor, the ever-alluring MP3 player plugged into our sweet new speakers. The more I think about it, the more I'm beginning to suspect that hearing God has less to do with whether or not God is actually saying anything to me and more to do with whether or not I'm actually listening. When my ears are ringing with everything else, how do I know when it's God calling? Saints, I wonder that a lot myself. I wonder, and I wish sometimes that I would hear God's voice audibly, even though it might freak me out a little bit. I had a former pastor who told a story about his preacher's kid daughter when she was about the age that my daughter is now, asking her the hardest question he's ever been asked. "Daddy, when did God stop talking?" Because she understood that the way Scripture speaks about God and about how God speaks to humans, it sounds very much like God sits down and has a conversation across the coffee table with people like Abraham and like Moses and Isaiah and lots of the other prophets. It's like they hear God, they see God, they talk face to face with God. And God doesn't seem to speak to us like that these days. So she wanted to know, when did that change? And the reality is, I think most of the people in Scripture probably didn't hear God in any different way than the ways that we hear God today. I think that just over time they could see more clearly, or they could understand more clearly, that what they had heard was the voice of God. So how is it that you hear God's voice? How do you know when God is speaking to you? I wonder, if it's in Scripture, if it's in a worship setting, if it's somewhere out in nature when you can get quiet and you really feel like God is present with you. I know it's hard for us to get rid of all the noise that tends to surround our lives. I mean, let's try it right now. I'll stop talking for 5 seconds. And even in that time, I doubt that you really experienced silence, right? Right here where I'm recording, I can hear the heat running in the building. I can hear the voice of children playing down the hall. I can hear, actually, if I listen hard, I can hear the traffic outside as it goes up and down Timberlake. I can hear, well, last time I tried to record this, I actually heard the phone rang and interrupted because I forgot to put it on silent. So there's sound throughout our lives, even when we make, or when we try to make room for quiet and room for solace. There is sound. And so much of it can feel distracting, can feel overwhelming, can feel like it's drowning out our ability to pay attention. But then sometimes maybe it is what we need to pay attention to. Maybe that call on the phone is someone needing help, someone needing what a pastor can provide to them. Maybe the kids down the hall are in need of teaching, in need of guidance, or maybe they're the voice of God sharing some joy and speaking life into this day. You know, there are lots of ways that God speaks. I'm curious what you hear, how you hear the voice of God. Think about it this week, saints. Think about where God speaks to you, when God speaks to you, how God speaks to you. Think about what it is that you expect when you ask to hear the voice of God. And maybe that will help you to tune your ear a little bit differently and pay closer attention. Saints, that's your devotional for this week. Hope it's helpful and something worth thinking about. Hope you're doing well and staying healthy, and I will be praying for you. Please keep praying for me, and I will see you again soon. Take care, y'all.